Welcome to the Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community Podcast. I'm your host, Patrice Tsague. I'm here. It's been a while coming. I'm here with my good friends Lonny and Sherri Hutchison. How are y'all doing? My passive income coaches. How y'all doing?
That's right. Doing good.
Good, doing great. Thanks for having
Well,
us.
I'm good. So, in all confession, I have to admit I've backslidden some. So every time I'm like, oh boy, I'm like, I was all set. So I may be a few months behind schedule, but it's not the coach's fault, it's the student.
Which, you know what, and that happens in life, and that's okay. You pick up from wherever you're at all the time, and we do the same thing. We stumble, we fall, we get up, and we just move forward, and that's part of life right there.
Yeah.
Don't you love these coaches? They make me feel it's like guiltless coaching.
That's
So
right.
listen, let me tell you about this couple. They're two of my favorite people, one of my favorite couples. It's been close to 10 years we've known each other. It's been
Yeah.
that long. And Lonnie and I getting older and Sherri's getting younger. That's something's not right with that picture. Whatever you're drinking, Sherri, that's what we want to order.
We need to pass it on.
We won't pass it on. So there are passive income coaches. Thank you guys for just committing to help us pass on this passive income message to as many people as possible. So this is the couple to blame. The fact that somehow I drank the Kool-Aid and I'm on this passive income thing, that's not part of our overall strategy, right? So met Lonny and Sherri when they were running a company, an HVAC company. Did I say it right?
Yep.
And heating and air conditioning is probably the better term for that people understand what that means. They were owners of a company here in Portland, Oregon, Portland, Vancouver area. And we're going to talk about that meeting and how that went. But from then, they were facing challenges, and we worked with them to get that addressed. But Lonny and Sherri never found true freedom in the business.
Right.
It wasn't until they sold the business and began to be intentional about passive income that they found true freedom. Is that the right way to put it?
Yes.
Yep.
And that's interesting because, I coach and teach entrepreneurs to find fulfillment and find freedom in business as they create wealth, as they build kingdom companies. But for you didn't find it there. I mean, you actually, Lonny, felt like the business was like a prison for you.
Yeah.
Is that a true statement?
Yeah. For me, the being the center cog of it, I never was able to get rid of some of the responsibilities so that it would run without me or feeling like it would even sustain.
Wow. So let's talk about that. So Lonny and Sherri, first of all, let's talk about you guys as a couple. How'd you guys meet, and how did this young man convince you, Sherri, to marry him?
Wow. We are high school sweethearts. So we actually met in grade school, 5th and 6th grade. But we were high school sweethearts. And so I think it was
wow. And the rest is history.
And I still like him. So that's important.
That is incredible. And you still look like a high schooler. I mean, that's incredible.
Thanks.
I mean, look at that. She got pretty teeth, nice skin, hair is still there. Lonny, I've lost mine. Lonny, you are losing yours a little bit.
Yeah.
So Lonny, did you imagine when you met her in high school that
grade school
close to what is it grade school? Is it close to 50 years later that you will still be together?
Yeah. So we've been married 31 years. And
wow.
Yeah. So then you add up high school, junior high, grade school.
Wow.
For a long time.
Let me ask you a question. So most men are thinking, and women are thinking, is it boring to have the same person all this time? Do you like sometimes say, I wish I had a life before I met him?
I don't know anything different.
Yeah.
I don't
know anything different. That's good. That's a great answer. That's a great question answer. So you guys are, so you're dating and you eventually get married. You have two kids, right?
Hmm.
Two beautiful kids. Your daughter is amazing. Your son is too. And he's like, what about me? Your son is too.
Yeah.
But your daughter, I mean, she's always kind of had it together. That's the thing about that. I just remember about it. When I met her when she was young, she's always had it together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I think she sticks out to her mother.
I think so too.
So I think so. So at which point did you both decide to go into business, and how did that happen?
It was mostly Lonnie to go into business.
Yeah. So it's funny here, a guy working with my hands, doing the heating and air conditioning, installation and service, all the trade work. I was realizing, looking around at the owners of different companies, and I was thinking to myself, as little as I make, I don't think I could possibly make less owning the business.
Mm.
And there was about the extent. Now, my parents were entrepreneurs growing up. They had a business where they delivered products to stores. So they had a few distribution trucks, and delivered dairy products. So I saw them run a business from inside the home. So I got to see that. And so that was always in my mind of he called the shots. But for me, the motivation was, I don't think I can make anything less than I was currently making. So really, what else is there to lose? And I had clients that were saying, we follow you. We think you do a good job and we support you. And so it just seemed to be a no-brainer.
Wow. And was it in part because you wanted more flexibility, Lonnie? If you weren't going to make less, or you weren't even going to make it more, but was there more flexibility? What was your motivation?
Making more money.
Okay. So you figure, I can't make less. For sure, I can make more. Let me go for it.
Yeah.
All right.
That was it. I mean, so a guy, from a small town, high school education. What else? I was looking for opportunities to work. I'd work. If I needed to work 2 jobs, I'd work 2 jobs. I'd work 12-hour days, whatever it took. I just needed opportunities to make more money.
And Sherri, you've told me he's always been a worker.
He's always been a worker.
He's always been a worker.
Absolutely.
So working has never been. That's incredible. So Sherri, do you remember when he came to you and said, "We're going to start a business, honey," and how you felt?
I think I've always been pretty supportive. So I think, that was a long time ago, but it was just like, well, why not? Let's just do it.
Let's just do it. And that's literally true. Lonnie, you married well. I'm telling you. She's like Gina. She's like your shares like my Gina. Just your this profile is an S, right, Sherri? S probably. This profile probably is an SC, maybe.
I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, you got an S. Yeah, you remember me. So you kind of just come along for the ride and whatever it took. Now, so Lonnie, you're going to this business, and it kind of takes you to this whole world of entrepreneurship, right? And tell us a bit about that, starting the business, and at which point does it stop being fun?
So being a craftsman or a tradesman, being a guy that worked well with his hands, you go out and you start serving your clients. You treat them fairly, responsibly, respectably, and all of a sudden you have more work. And pretty soon it starts growing. When I got to hire people. And at first it was fun and it was exciting. But I don't have business systems. I don't have anything in place to manage this. And so it didn't take long until it spun up. And pretty soon we have 10, 12 people working for us. And I got a hold of the E-Myth book. And I thought to myself, I was sitting there reading this thing. I started crying. I'm like, I think this person's looking over my shoulder. And that's me. And so, I read it through and realized that I'm not the manager. And so I had to kind of release that to Sherri. And over time that worked for quite a while.
Pause there for a minute. Sherri, before that, were you kept trying to tell him, "Hey, let me do this," or was he pretty cooperative? How was, before he got that book and he got that insight, how was the dynamic between the two of you guys?
It went back and forth. I definitely am more of a systems person, so it was more natural for me to bring those things up. But he's not very much of a follower systems. So if there was a system to be designed, he would be the first to buck the system.
Okay.
Even if there was a good system, if there was any system, he's just that's
he's
just
kind of a I do it myself kind of guy.
Yeah.
He's a leader. We're talking to Lonny and Sherri Hutchison. There will be there are passive income coaches with us, and Sherri, you also coach for Tardis, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. And on, if you've not yet signed up, you want to do that today. We have the passive income forum coming up, and the link is right there on the chat. It's on, I believe, September, the really next week actually. Pamela, good to have you with us. The 29th, and this passive income forum where we're going to have the Bennett brothers. We're going to have Lonny and Sherri Hutchison. We had Lee, who was here last week. We have others who are going to be sharing their passive income journeys as we try to help you to learn how to do what Lonny and Sherri essentially did, where they went from a job to a business, and they still didn't find freedom there, and they had to continue to go on, and then passive income where they found it. So Lonny, so you learn about systems and you start crying, and that kind of motivates you to tap into Sherri more. And then, but you hit a ceiling even with Sherri supporting you. Was that because you were beyond Sherri's capacity, or because your perception was that she could no longer help you? What led to that ceiling, and where you felt you had to look at other options?
As we grew more, we ran into that technical component where there was too much technical need. That, I mean, Sherri's not going to help me with that stuff out there. You know, if you're a mechanic fixing cars and you get 100 cars coming through, one or two mechanics isn't going to help you. Pretty soon you're overwhelmed again. So I started looking. I found a guy that was technically capable, liked him, worked with him. So he made him a key employee, and then ended up offering him ownership in the organization to stick around. Mentally was thinking these golden handcuffs. And
that's where I come in. That's at the point I come into your lives.
Yeah. Let that fall apart for a few years, and then we meet you.
So I remember when I first met you guys, the BE class. Could you remind our audience kind of the scenario that was happening at that time?
So my wife was kind of drawing a line in the sand. I was trying to give ownership away to this key employee who I really liked. And Sherri says, yeah, I agree. He's a great guy. Stop giving ownership away. Well, remember, I'm not all that creative in business at this time. So I'm like, well, what else am I going to give the guy? You know? And so he's got ownership, which mind you, he didn't pay any money for, but he now has ownership, and now he wants to have a lot of input and say so over what goes on. And so there we were in the midst of this turmoil that my wife is saying, stop doing this. You're going to hurt us. And I'm saying, I don't know what you're talking about, and full steam ahead. And so here we meet you with this circumstance. Now there's turmoil in the business. There's turmoil at home. And I'm not seeing a way out of this thing.
So, and that's where we come in. So we began to work with Lonny and Sherri, and the objective was to address the family situation. And I have to give it to them. Lonny and Sherri were just amazing client. And I'm trying to think. At first, Sherri was very cooperative, and then Lonny became the most cooperative, and they kind of flipped back and forth based on the time and day. But overall, they were amazing. So we worked together, and unfortunately, the partnership did not stand the test. We won't get into that today, but the partnership did not stand the test of time, and eventually, it was just you and Sherri at the end of the day, right? Now, but before we go to what happens next, because you end up selling the business, but before that. Because what ultimately ended up happening with you guys is that you grew the business to profitability. You had a number of employees. You got stuck in this weird partnership where we kind of worked through to kind of resolve it. It ended up not working out. It had to be a split. But before that, at a certain point, you and Sherri, while trying to get this business going, you were investing in real estate. I mean, right? so tell us a bit about that, because it wasn't like you sold the business and start doing this passive income stuff. You were doing some things that would build a foundation for passive income way before. First, tell us about that, and were you conscious of it?
Yeah. So I was conscious of the concept. I didn't have words always to describe it. I didn't have the methodologies to calculate it correctly, but I had the concept because I worked for wealthy people. I serviced their geothermal systems and their boiler systems, everything complex inside their home. So it's a very personal relationship when you have somebody like that that services your systems at home. And so I'd always ask these people, what do you do? And a huge percentage of the people make money in real estate and in various ways around it. And so I was always aware of it. And anytime I got an opportunity to buy something that in my own calculations would make sense, then we would try to stretch and either buy it, we would fix it up, flip it, whatever we could do along the way. Now, looking back, I mean, yeah, it worked because it works. But man, now with how we can calculate it, we could have squeezed so much more money out of the same deals.
Yeah.
But that's where you start.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it. So now you're smarter. You can look back and say, I could have done a better deal. But you were at least kind of leaning in. And so while you're facing these challenges in business, so forth, you are kind of doing real estate on the side. You bought your own building, for instance, right? The building at your business. Sherri, when your husband was making these decisions about, whether it's buying real estate or the build, whatever, what were you thinking? Were you like thinking, oh, let's do it? Or were you kind of concerned?
No, I was actually always pretty supportive. I think there was only probably when we bought our building for our business was the only one I was like, man, I don't think we can do that. It was in 2007, right before the economy was going in the tank. And it was like a tumultuous time for us. Half of our contractors weren't paying us. We just didn't have the money, but he really wanted this building. So it was really in faith that we're like, okay, let's see if we can figure it out. And it was super hard for a long time, but for the most part, it's a good program, good system to be in. And I like the challenge of most of those. Not afraid of the work.
She touched on something there, Patrice, I think is really important. So 2007 at the peak, we had to buy this commercial piece of property at the absolute peak value. The very next year, we got stuck with all kinds of customers going bankrupt, and we got stuck with all their bad debt.
Wow.
We overpaid for our building quite a bit, and then the market falls out.
Wow.
And so it took us about 7 years from that point to where that product became a profitable situation.
So here's what's interesting, because people look at you guys now. You guys are fully passive. You work still, but not by choice, because you guys are workers. But you don't have to. But you had those seasons where there were tough moments, and you had to be patient. At the time, I said patient. You had to really trust and act in faith to believe God for those things to happen. So during those moments, when you look back, did you ever imagine a time like this where you would have the kind of net worth you have and be able to fully live passively?
Back then, no.
Wow.
I couldn't see that far. No.
Wow. Isn't that incredible? Wow. So you go through the business challenge, you sell the business, and you didn't sell the business. It was a fire sale, essentially.
Yeah.
Because Lonny, you wanted out, right?
Yeah. That's a whole nother time, maybe for another topic, but I wanted out almost for the wrong reasons. Yeah. So we can talk about that at another time, but so I was meant to
explain, because I'm sure I'm watching and listening and say, explain, what does that mean for you?
So we had bought our partnership out. So it's about close to a year in after that, we're running the business. I chose my wife through this process. So I didn't choose the partner. I didn't choose the business. I chose my wife. that was a mental commitment that I had to choose. I had to make my life really small during that period of time. And, you know, you were part of that. You probably know some of these conversations, the prayers that I would have with God is like, okay, God, I can't do two things. So what one thing can I do? And it is to honor my marriage. And so when I made that mental commitment, I let go of all my visions and dreams about business. I let go of all my ambitions for the moment. And because of that, I didn't want to run the business anymore. I was broken. You know, if you pull an arm muscle or something, you don't want to use that anymore for a while. You want it to heal. So I was preparing our life to sell, and I was really preparing for a life of simple failure, I guess is maybe a way of saying it, to say just kind of to slide off into the darkness and live a very simple, easy life. And that's what was going through my mind. So it wasn't grandeur plans of magnificence.
And you guys actually lived in an RV for a while.
18 months.
18 months. So, Sherri, I'm curious. During this time, he's trying to simplify, almost giving up everything just for you. How you feeling? Are you feeling like, oh, he loves me? Or you feeling like, man, what are you doing? I mean, what's going through your head?
I kind of felt like, man, what are you doing? yeah, definitely. But I think
you were getting what you wanted, right?
Yeah, yeah. But he wasn't himself. He was, like he said, he was broken.
That tiger was gone.
Right. He wasn't the regular Lonny that, you know, I married. He was, you know, hurt and retreating. But I think that's where it's cool about the whole situation too, is that's where God showed up and he was like, oh, well, I'm going to bless you now. I'm going to show you.
Wow.
So that was pretty exciting.
Did you, at that moment, Sherri, were you concerned that, wow, this tiger's down for good? Or did you know that he'll get back at it again at a certain point?
I don't think I knew per se, but I had faith that it would be different, because there were signs. Like there would be good moments and bad moments, and it's an ebb and flow over time.
We talked to Lonny and Sherri. They built an HVAC company, met as in kindergarten, or was it elementary? they were born together, and had two beautiful children, and together built an HVAC company, but never found freedom in the business. Went through a trial relationship with the partners, and made the right decisions along the way, as painful as it was. And sold their company. But true freedom was found for them when they became intentional about passive income. So let's talk about the moment. By the way, they're going to be our guests for our passive income forum coming up on September the 29th. If you're not yet registered, do it today. Go to NehemiahEcommunity.com events. You can find it there, or you can just click the link on your on the podcast here. They'll take you there. So at which point did you guys begin to be intentional about passive income? Could you talk to us about how that came about?
Well, when we had owned our company, we had started it. I think we started it in a year, one of the years we were in there, but our lives were so busy and so chaotic. It didn't make sense at the time. So we left the system that we were with. And then when the company that bought our heating company, when we moved into them, and my position wasn't very exciting. I mean, the company is really good, but my position that I was in didn't have enough creativity probably for me. And I found myself not really liking my job very much. So I reached back out to TARDIS, the company that works with us on the passive income. And I said, hey, I want to restart. These are my limits that I want to do. And I got all the information, invited Lonny at the very end. He didn't know I was working on it. And, and I said, hey, we're going to have a meeting today at, whatever time it was going to be. And, we're going to sit down and go over this. And we went over that meeting, and he was like, man, I had no idea that was a scalable system. And we talked more, and then we've been doing it ever since. And it took maybe 6, 8, 10 months when I started restarted the system until I had left the company. So that was really good for me.
Wow. So you have something. So tell us, you mentioned Tardis. Tell us what Tardis does and who they are, so that audience, which was, they became the system you used to really be intentional passive income. And they will be either one of the partners that we're going to be using to get. So if you work with us on passive income, Tardis will be one of the organization that will help you, as they've helped Lonny and Sherri. So who's Tardis and what do they do?
So TARDIS is an organization that it's essentially a financial education in a nutshell. But like you, they're going to partner with the clients, and they're going to walk them through what are their goals, what types of investments do they have access to, what things do they feel comfortable with, and how can you build this platform that you want to move forward. So within that, man, there's my mind goes so many different directions. But to understand, back up a little bit with real estate, I started to get, while we own the company, I started to get the hang of the fact that there's money in real estate long term. I wanted to get better at it. I wanted to understand how you finance it, how do you tweak it, how do you manage it. I knew there was more benefits than we were getting out of it. I just didn't know how to get them out of it. And I started reading books. I started watching it, stuff on TV. I would go to seminars, whatever I could get my hands on. And then somewhere along the way, we stumbled onto a seminar series that they charged us a significant amount of money for this education. And I thought, okay, this is what I've been looking for. So we bought the golden ticket. I mean, we stepped up and we spent the money on the golden ticket and went through the whole class, the whole process, all the books, all the training. And at the end of the day, I realized they taught me really nothing that I didn't already know. That was very frustrating. So the amount of money I spent on this education, they could have partnered with me and did a deal. And I would have made money and learned it simultaneously. So I became kind of like, okay, I don't need these people that aren't going to help. They're just there to simply sell this component and let you do it, and they go on their way. So that's probably for me this component that I was ready to move forward. So needless to say, when Sherri brought TARDIS back into the mix, I was skeptical, right? They're an education facility. No, I'm entering it very cautiously. And, but I found out we kept looking into it, and I was able to get a hold of one of the owners and had a conversation with him. And he reassured me, he goes, look, it's math. You can run the numbers yourself. Run the numbers. It's just math. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna. So I got up the next day and I sat on the computer for hours running these numbers by the way, the computer can do the work, but I didn't trust it. I wanted to do every mathematical equation myself. And I did it for days. And I realized, okay, this is legit. And so I'm like, okay, I'm all in. And so from that point on, I'd say,
wow,
it's been a climb.
So walk us through. So TARDIS, they coach you through the process, but they also introduce you to a system. Tell us a bit about what that system looks like.
Well, you're the systems gal.
Well, they have a patented, Tanisha came up with a patented income snowball calculator that to help, if you put your numbers in and you stick with it as the person being coached, it'll take that time frame and it'll tell you when you can retire with whatever number that you came up with. Like, let's say it's $3,000 a month that you need to leave your job. You can put that number in and it will help you come up with a financial freedom date.
And that's what we define as passive income, a time where you're truly financially free, where you can live off of income that's you're earning passively, and you can do whatever you want to do with your time. It doesn't mean you don't work, like Lonny and Sherri still work, but they can choose not to. But we know that work is worship as people of God, so we created to work, but they're not working for money; they're working for fulfillment. Is that the right way to put it? Yeah. Lonny, go ahead.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, they give this roadmap, this system, so that they can forecast and calculate and hold you accountable to where you're at. And Okay, so that's what they're bringing to the table, which is powerful, I think, and even more so for Sherri. But for me, it's the concepts. I want concepts that are proven, that work, that are repeatable, and then the education that begins to differentiate reoccurring income and passive income. Like, they feel the same, but they're not. If you make $10,000 a month, but you have to go onto the computer every day and buy these investments every day and manage that and transfer money and maybe have a manager calculate all the profits at the end of the month and send you your checks. That's not really passive because it's reoccurring. So you're not going to a job to do it. And maybe you're not working 8 hours a day, you're working 2 hours a day, but nevertheless, it's 2 hours a day that you have to spend doing it. And so with that in mind, we started getting down the path where we had a significant amount of reoccurring income, but we were essentially building ourselves these part-time jobs to manage it. We had to wait a minute, okay, let's back up here. How are we going to redo this in ways that we can have the same income, but no management?
Or limited management.
Yeah, or limited management. And so now we're finding ourselves changing what we're investing in so that we invest in things that are more passive for a percentage of it.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, Lonny, to give perspective, you guys kind of your total, when you look at your total net worth, over $5 million, right? Within that, you have various, we have a thing called the passive income continuum. You have various dimension of passive income from partially passive to fully passive, right? And you've generated a snowball mechanism and so forth. And it's just incredible what's happened. So what is your portfolio made up of? So if somebody says, give them a picture of what combination of stuff that you actually, passively or actively investing in that are allowing you to be able to enjoy this freedom that you now enjoy.
Well, so do you want to separate them by passive and reoccurring, or just
yes, let's go for it. Now let me say to our audience, by the way, don't forget we have the passive income forum coming up. One thing you're going to learn about the passive and recurring income, you have active, reoccurring, and passive. And the idea is that you want to get towards passive, but to get there, you got to start with active. And then you may have to include reoccurring. Actually, you have to include recurring because that's great as well. And as you get your way to passive, yes, go for it.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is our passive income is really the wealth management, and the active and reoccurring is wealth generation. So as we do some of the real estate deals, now that we have money that comes in and takes care of the living expenses, you're not so worried about what if I do this real estate deal, will I be able to make the payment for the house next month or whatever, right? So when that's taken care of, you feel a little more comfortable to take some risks in real estate. Well, guess what? When you risk real estate and you do it, you may not get paid in 12 months, but maybe get paid in 24 to 36 months, but your return will probably be very good. So it allows you to build wealth through that kind of active things. So we're invested in, we've got 3 manufactured home parks, 9-plex. We've got a couple of houses in Alabama. We've got a few houses in Florida that we're building right now. We've got a few individual rentals. So that's kind of around the active and reoccurring. And then on the reoccurring, we also have some social lending. So that's kind of most of the reoccurring, right? Active and reoccurring.
Yeah.
So then in the passive, we've invested in an energy company that secures drilling rights on private lands. That's done incredibly well because of the administration we have. We invested and own some ATMs. So that's a pretty passive situation. We've got money in real estate companies that own like 1,200 houses and they own them outright. So they just rent them and they pay us monthly.
Wow.
We have some money in the stock market, mutual funds and things of that nature.
That is an incredible portfolio. So you talked about ATM. How do you invest in ATM? I'm a little curious. That was an intriguing one. I like to. So do you own it? You can just go withdraw money anytime you want.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
They withdraw for us and just pay us every month for them.
So that's a fun one. Because it's considered machinery, we get to deduct or depreciate 60% of its value the first year, and then the rest over the next 6 years.
Wow.
Then they pay us 12% essentially interest on our money. Plus we get a percentage of some of the profits as well as a tax benefit. At the end of the day, it's like 26% return.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
And you know what? I forgot to mention the stuff for Nehemiah. I mean,
that's right. They're also chicken investors. Ooh,
yeah,
that's the most important one.
Yeah, we've got the school in
that's right.
Kenya. And
that's probably one of my favorites, actually.
I love it. We still got to do that Kenya trip.
Yes.
So because of this, I invited Lonny and Sherri because I was their coach. I worked with them through the business piece and so forth. And throughout that process, I didn't know all of this. And they came back to us and they're part of our couples in business, by the way. If you're a husband and wife team, email our office that you want to join once a month. We meet with couples from around the world where we fellowship together, grow together, learn together, and so forth. So they're really told me, I said, you know what? If I would have, I think about so many entrepreneurs that have not helped effectively because I didn't know what they're now teaching me. And part of the challenge with that is that because they took their business to profitability, they were never sustainable. They were trying to get there. He began with the E-Myth. We came in, try to get them there, and we didn't make it. There was a lot of turmoil that occurred. But the saving grace for them was that along the way, they were investing in real estate. And so post-sale of the business, they were then able to, thank God for Lonny, for Sherri. Sherri, Lonny married well. She began to go with Tortoise, and here now they are. So you guys are now helping us with this process. So Lonny, go back to what you know now, and when you first began your entrepreneurship journey, what would you do different based on what you know now?
Man, oh man. Well, first off, I would start it as early as I could have. We would have probably invested heavily initially into our infinite banking, a strategy called infinite banking. It allows you to build up a way of accessing money that when you buy automobiles, when you fund your life going through forward, it eliminates the interest component because you've built up money inside this machine that when you borrow the money out, they're paying you interest on your money. You're paying them interest on the money you borrowed, but it negates each other. So you buy a car, you're not ever paying any interest, and you just repeat that over and over, and it funds your life. That would have been something I would have started early. I would have held on to some of the real estate we sold in the past, and we would have probably done more of it. So here's the thing: as we get better and better at this, there's opportunities that come up. We own parks now, and there's a guy that just bought his first manufactured home park in a couple cities over from us, an hour away. They're right now working on the closing component, buying the property, and he's got some concerns with the city and this, that, and the other thing. So they're going to pay me a pretty substantial fee simply to come with them to the city to talk through these issues. Wow. And then he wants to pay me a pretty substantial fee to come on board and help them stabilize the park. Like, these things are opportunities that would have never come along if you don't do, that's not something I would have ever seen coming.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
As you're talking, I'm just thinking, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything that you need will be added onto you. I think, who would ever guess that by you committing to the one thing, your wife and your marriage, would lead to all of this?
Yeah, it is. Lately, I don't know what it is, but lately I've just been so touched by, the reality of grace, the good news of grace and power. So for me, my story is one of submittance. I submitted to the process. I submitted to my wife, and I gave what I had to God, and I said, God, it's yours. It always was yours. I was just holding on pretty tight. So I'm going to let you have it. It's all yours, and I'm going to live in our trailer, so you know where I'm at if you need me. Right? That was my
And now you own trailers. You know what's amazing about this story is that, when I think about our journey together, it was a success and a failure, right? It was a success in that you guys were able to get your marriage together. It fell in that we couldn't get the business to get to sustainability because of the relational dynamic that fell apart. And so we had to then work to selling it. And so you sold it to find, to find fulfillment. But that was what opened the door for you to all of this, the power of obedience. Listen, we're just be talking to Lonny and Sherri Hutchison, owners of an HVAC company, heating and conditioning, who were able to build a profitable business, but couldn't find fulfillment there because of just relational issues and system issues. Sold the company and have been able to find true freedom in passive income, and they're now helping others. So they're one of our passive income coaches. They work with us and with how do you say that name again? True. TARDIS. That's right, TARDIS, in helping people in their own passive income journey. They don't have to do it. They don't for the money. They just do it because they want to help. And so join us on September the 29th as Lonny and Sherri will kind of share some tip techniques from their story as we work with you to help you towards your own passive income journey. Listen, if you enjoyed our podcast, I want you to share it with others. Share with friends. Share it with those that you love. Share it with those who you're saying, hey, listen, I've heard about this couple who've been married for over 30 years, had ups and downs. They're still happy. Who have gone through trials and tests, but God saw them through, and who did that living passively. Share this story so that somebody's going to have hope to know that God is able. Don't leave yet, though, because I have one more question for Lonny and Sherri. If you want to attend our passive income forum, visit us at Nehemiah Project, NehemiahEcommunity.org, NehemiahEcommunity.com, sorry, NehemiahEcommunity.com. There you can connect with us and not only register the forum, but also you can learn about a training program where biblical entrepreneurship, identity, destiny, now passive income training. You can learn about our coaching program, coach like Lonny and Sherri come alongside you, whether it help you towards passive income or help you towards building your business, taking it to sustainability. You can also learn about our Kingdom Investors Network, where you can be part of a network where you can connect with investors like Lonny and Sherri who are willing to, should you be a fit for them, to invest into your business as Kingdom investors. So, Lonny and Sherri, before we close, there are entrepreneurs watching and listening, and and they're along that journey. They may be facing a relational issue like you did. They may be facing sustainability issues as you did, or they may be that season where they made some decisions that have put them where things are tight right now, and they have to believe. So, Sherri, what advice would you give the wives as to how should they be thinking, and how should they be supporting that husband who's out there in harm's way or in the eye of the spear?
Well, first of all, I think they should pray for their husbands, because that's what we're called to do. We're not called to, make them do something different or, be their bosses. But
you tried, but this guy is unruly.
Very much so. Yeah. But I pray for him all the time too, because only God can make those changes, and really only Lonny can make those changes, and that would be my best advice at this, for anyone needing that. And then just be the encourager. Husbands were designed to lead, and sometimes women get in the way of that, and I think we need to step to the side.
I love it. Sherri, when I see you now and I think about when we first met, night and day difference.
Yeah, that was painful time in my life for sure. I think I cried for like 2 years straight every day.
I know. But look at God. He's faithful. By the way, somebody asked, what is TARDIS? What does TARDIS mean? Do you guys know?
I don't know what TARDIS means.
No.
Okay, don't know. Google it. So, Lonny, some men are watching and they heard you talk about full surrender. And what advice would you give them? What, how would they go about that? Because that's tough for a man.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, I had boiled my life down to a very simple one thing. And because I'm looking at all this, I sensed my partnership situation was going to blow up. It was going to melt down. Our company would be divided because he was good at what he did. He had support from our clients and some of our employees, all that, right? So when you're faced with those components, I mean, you kind of cornered me one time in this conversation. We were talking about all the covenants that we have, with God. So we started with the list. It's not a very long list. And so when you're faced with that reality, what covenants did you make with God? Maybe you should honor those. And so Patrice, many times along the way, walking through with you helped me get there, right? It wasn't a failure. Our business was never a failure in being coached by you guys. It was an absolute success of getting us where we needed to be. So if you ever get coached or you're in the situation, I guess my first line thing would be to get coaching and then submit to the coaching, as long as you're getting someone from a Christian-based biblical entrepreneurship that you can trust, that they're there for the right reasons, then trust the process. It may not, it's not going to end up how you think. I can almost guarantee that, but that's okay. You have to be prepared for that, because that's where growth comes from. So I think that's, I guess, my advice. And one clarification, I just want everybody to understand, Sherri's not a coach for TARDIS because it's an ambition we had. This is simply a commitment that we want to be able to connect the Nehemiah people to the TARDIS organization for the ones that it fits. So Sherri will be that common ground and that conduit, so you won't feel like you're being handed off to some other organization you don't have a connection. It's the only reason that we've done it, is we're trying to get these two organizations to work as one, to pull towards passive and reoccurring income, to educate everyone.
Yeah.
Wow. And guys, thank you so much. You have a book coming out in a year from now, and we're going to come back here and talk about it. What's the book called, Lonny?
A Blue Collar Path to a White Collar Life.
Stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about that book. Guys, Lonny and Sherri Hutchison, that was wonderful. Man. Listen, don't sign up right now, if you've not done so yet, to the Global Forum on September the 29th. As you hear more about from Lonny and Sherri Hutchison, you'll hear from the Lee, you'll hear from the Bennett brothers, and many others as we talk to you about how to begin your journey or continue your journey towards passive income. Guys, you were amazing. Thank you so much for the day. What a wonderful story. Well, with that said, let me pray for you guys. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord enable you to steward those talents that are under your care, and to steward them in such a way, just like Lonny and Sherri have, that one day you'll hear those wonderful words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things." Guess what? He'll not make you rule over much. God bless you. Thanks for watching and listening. Guys, thank you so much. God bless y'all.
Thanks for having us.